Your six-figure salary is a total lie, and the math proves you are actually living in a state of financial ruin right now. Earning $100,000 used to mean you were the king of the neighborhood, driving a luxury car and owning a massive estate with zero worries. But today, for a Gen X worker, that same amount of money feels like you are drowning in a sea of debt and barely scraping by for the next meal. You're working harder than any generation before you, yet your bank account looks like a crime scene every single month. But there is a hidden, systemic reason for this collapse that nobody is willing to discuss on the news, and I am going to reveal the disturbing truth about where your wealth actually went at the very end of this video. Get ready for a reality check. Think about the boomer generation for a second, because their reality was basically a completely different planet compared to what we are facing today in the modern world. Back then, $100,000 was a lottery ticket to a life of absolute leisure and early retirement plans. They could buy a three-bedroom house, two brand-new cars, and put three kids through university without ever breaking a sweat or checking their credit card balance. Now, fast forward to today, and that same 100 grand barely covers the rent in a mediocre city apartment while you struggle to pay for basic health insurance. We're going to dive deep into the psychology of this massive wealth gap because understanding the personality shift between generations is the only way to realize why you feel so broke while doing everything exactly right. This is the ultimate breakdown of the Great American Wealth Heist. The biggest issue is that the numbers on your paycheck haven't moved at the same speed as the world around you, creating a massive psychological burden. When a boomer hears you make six figures, they think you're sipping champagne on a private yacht. But in reality, you're likely calculating if you can afford the premium eggs at the grocery store. This disconnect creates a massive amount of resentment and stress that defines the Gen X experience because you were promised a dream that was sold off before you even arrived. The cost of living has skyrocketed in ways that go far beyond simple inflation. It is a fundamental restructuring of how money functions in our society today. We need to look at the cold, hard facts of housing, education, and healthcare to see how the middle class was effectively erased while everyone was looking the other way. Let's talk about the house, which used to be the cornerstone of any stable financial personality and the primary way families built their long-term wealth over decades. In the 1980s, the average home price was roughly 3 times the median household income, making it easy for a single earner to provide for a whole family. Today, in many desirable areas, that ratio has exploded to 10 or even 15 times the average salary, making home ownership a distant fantasy for many. Even if you earn $100,000, a massive chunk of your take-home pay is swallowed by a mortgage that would have bought a mansion 40 years ago. You aren't failing at life. You are participating in a rigged game where the goalposts are being moved every single time you get close to scoring. It is an exhausting cycle that leads to total burnout. Then we have the absolute trap of higher education and the massive debt loads that Gen X was forced to carry into their prime working years just to compete. Boomers could literally work a part-time summer job at a grocery store and pay off their entire tuition for the year, graduating with a degree and zero financial baggage. You, on the other hand, likely started your career in a deep hole, paying off loans that have interest rates higher than your yearly raises could ever hope to match. This creates a personality of perpetual survival rather than one of growth and investment, which is why your $100,000 salary feels like it's disappearing into a black hole. You are paying for the past instead of building for your future, and that is a psychological weight that the older generation simply cannot comprehend or understand today. Lifestyle creep is often blamed by the media, but the truth is that the basics have simply become incredibly expensive luxuries that we cannot live without in modern society. Think about the cost of high-speed internet, smartphones, and the various subscriptions that are now mandatory for working and staying connected in a digital-first economy. While boomers paid for a landline and a newspaper, you are paying hundreds of dollars just to keep the lights on in your virtual life so you can stay employed. When you add in the skyrocketing cost of childcare, which has risen faster than almost any other sector, it becomes clear why 6 figures is the new 50 grand. You are being squeezed from every possible angle, and it has nothing to do with buying too many lattes or eating avocado toast on the weekends. It is a systemic failure of purchasing power.
Gen X is also uniquely trapped in the sandwich generation phenomenon that adds an incredible amount of financial and emotional pressure that boomers rarely had to deal with. You are likely supporting your own children who are struggling with this new economy while simultaneously caring for aging parents who didn't save enough for their long-term medical needs. This double-sided financial drain means your six-figure salary is being split between three different generations, leaving almost nothing for your own retirement or personal enjoyment. It is a heroic effort that often goes unnoticed, but it explains why you feel like you're living in poverty despite having a high-status job title. The personality of Gen X has become the ultimate provider, sacrificing their own well-being to keep the entire family structure from collapsing under the weight of modern economic pressures and rising costs. Let's get into the psychology of why this feels so much worse for you than it does for any other group currently navigating the workforce. You grew up watching the peak of the American dream, where a single income could buy a life of abundance and total security for a family. You were told if you worked hard and went to college, you would achieve that same level of comfort, but the reality was a bait and switch. This creates a deep sense of relative deprivation, where you feel poor not because you lack food, but because you lack the security your parents had. Your brain is constantly comparing your current struggle to the baseline of your childhood, and the gap between those two realities is where the feeling of poverty truly lives. It is a mental health crisis masked as a financial issue that impacts your personality. Boomers often look at the younger generations and see entitlement, but they are failing to see that the entire foundation of the economy has been hollowed out. They are living in a world where their assets, like homes and stocks, have inflated in value, making them feel incredibly wealthy, while your costs continue to rise. This creates a massive communication gap where they give advice that is 40 years out of date, telling you to just save more or work harder. They don't realize that $100,000 in 1980 is the equivalent of nearly $350,000 in today's currency after adjusting for the real inflation rates. When they see your salary, they see a fortune, but when you look at your bank account, you see a struggle to survive. This is the core of the generational conflict that is currently unfolding. Now, I promise to reveal the disturbing secret behind why your wealth has vanished, and the truth is more calculated than you might ever want to believe. It is called the Great Devaluation, and it was a deliberate move by financial institutions to shift the burden of risk from corporations onto the individual workers like you. By replacing stable pensions with volatile 401ks and allowing housing to become a speculative asset class for big banks, they ensured that your $100,000 isn't yours. It's a pass-through payment for interest, rent, and debt that keeps the machine running while you stay on the treadmill. If you want to break free from this cycle and protect what you have left, join the 1% who actually understand the game by hitting that subscribe button right now.